I'm Elizabeth Lolli, Interim Superintendent for the Lakota Local Schools. Welcome to a Look Around Lakota. Each month, we take a deeper dive into different areas of how we educate and support our students. Today, we're going to take a look at Lakota's curriculum for our students in kindergarten through grade 6. With us today is Executive Director of Curriculum and Instruction, Lori Brown, Director of Professional Learning, Krista Heidenreich, and Assistant Director of K-6 Curriculum, Emily Hermann. Curriculum is one of the largest departments in a school district. Typically, the curriculum department is responsible for the development of courses of study, support for the development of courses within each school, textbook or materials adoptions, professional development, assessment and testing, data collection and analysis, and a variety of other areas. Today, we're specifically going to talk about the actual curriculum, or what is taught in the elementary grade classroom, as well as professional development that supports the instruction of that curriculum. Thank you all for joining me today. I know you've been very busy over the past year working on aligning curriculum and courses for Lakota students. So let's get started and talk a little bit about what some of those changes have been. Elementary curriculum literally lays the foundation for a lifetime of learning. What foundational courses make up the K2 experience and then the 3-6 experience? Lori, could you answer that?
So actually all of our K-6 students experience our core courses, which are math, social studies, science, and then English language arts, which encompasses reading, writing, and word study. And then our students also have co-curriculars that we call specials in Lakota, and we'll get into those in just a little bit.
All right, thank you. Thinking about our beginning readers, the approach to early literacy has come full circle. Let's talk a little bit about the science of reading. We follow this approach because it's now a state requirement, but of course, it's a best practice. How have we done that? How does that translate into teaching our youngest learners to read?
Yes. So the science of reading is that huge body of research that is out there that are really telling us how students learn how to read. There's brain research, and then taking it and saying, how do we use that research to teach children? What does that look like in the classroom? And there's some misconception out there that the science of reading is just focused on phonics, but really it's everything that a reader needs. And so we take a look at the simple view of reading, where there's really two main parts, although reading is very complicated, right? But to simplify it, we're looking at word recognition, what's on the page, and then that language comprehension, how we understand words, our background knowledge that we bring, the vocabulary that we build. And then when those two come together, we're able to understand the books that we're reading, the text we're reading. And that's really what that research is about. We use that research to help us with instruction to make sure that we have all of those components in our classroom to support our learners. And the word recognition side of science of reading is, while we're going to be doing that with all of our students, there's a heavier focus in K2, 2, and 3. I was thinking our K2 buildings, but third grade too, right, to build those foundational skills. So we're going to work on things like phonological awareness, phonemic awareness. Those are knowing the hearing sounds, right? That's the sounds we hear. And then the phonics, the knowing our letters, the sounds that connect to those letters, what we read on a page, letters that go together to make different sounds. And then when we have those skills, we can read the words on the page. The other side, the language comprehension, in our earlier grades, a lot of that is going to be done aloud with students, right? We're reading out loud to them. We are working on, in science and social studies, reading books, and really helping to build their vocabulary, their background knowledge. And so then when they're reading, they'll be able to use that to understand the text. As we move up into 4th, 5th, and 6th, we're going to start to focus more on the comprehension side as students have mastered the word recognition skills and are able to read. And so there'll be a lot more work around understanding text and really working to make meaning of it.
And then we also work on developing their vocabulary, extending their vocabulary, and adding that fluency piece, because we know that
Absolutely.
fluency really will support us as we continue to move into harder text materials and make us feel much more like a reader because we're fluent and we're able to do that. We work on those also in the early primary grades, but it's more difficult because they don't quite have the word skills that they need to have and the opportunity to read as much as possible. One of the things that we know about the research is that students actually need to read in order to become good readers, and that's building that fluency piece, even at a young age. So when we think about what's happening in a Lakota literacy classroom, in kindergarten and first and second grade, how do we make sure that our students are actually practicing the reading portion, and what might we say to our parents about practicing with their children?
So we make sure that we build in time every day in our classrooms for students to read and to really get that application time to really improve their skills. And we use different types of books and text to help grow them as a reader and to grow their fluency. Some of the books or texts that a student might be reading would be what we call decodable, right? It has a controlled words in the book, on the page, that really match the phonics learning that the student is doing so that they're able to go in and use those skills to solve the words. We used some texts that are less controlled, so students are able to really work on interest and as they grow, expand from just being in a controlled text, but to really continue to grow as a reader. As far as parents, one thing that research really supports is that the more you read, the better you're going to do in school, in life. And so really just helping to foster at home, becoming a reader by reading to them, letting them read to you, looking beyond the, just text, but reading the cereal box, reading newspapers, magazines, getting a subscription for your child just to celebrate words on a page.
Those are excellent ideas and really easy to implement. Very easy for a parent to be able to do that as we're getting ready to go to sleep, maybe read a book or share a read with my child sitting there, and they read part of it, I read part of it, or even them reading to me. So those are excellent ideas for parents. Becoming a really good literacy teacher takes a lot of training, it takes a lot of patience, takes a lot of study and work. How have Lakota teachers prepared for the science of reading change that's been mandated by the governor?
Yeah, so many of our teachers actually started this work last year. We, as a district, offered a couple of book studies. We did one book study on shifting the balance and the other on the essentials of assessing, preventing, and overcoming reading difficulties. And that really did set the tone for shifting our literacy instruction. We also had a large group of teachers that attended science of reading training over the summer at Mount St. Joseph. And then with this year, we have a year-long professional development. Our teachers are participating in the Science of Reading training from the Ohio Department of Education and Workforce. And so on our professional development days, our teachers come together and go through the modules provided by the state, but then they also have time during those days to collaborate, reflect, talk to each other, and really think about how they're going to apply this learning into their classroom. We also have innovation specialists at every building, and those innovation specialists provide job-embedded instructional coaching. They are also going through the training and preparing themselves to support the teachers, so it provides that real-time support for teachers as they're engaging with students in their classroom.
And I know one thing that Lakota does, which is different from a lot of school systems, it's a much more innovative than a lot of other places, is there's a credentialing type program. So whenever I participate, I earn a specific type of credential. Could you talk a little bit about that credentialing and maybe tie it to what we're doing with science of reading?
Yeah, so we actually, through our learning management system, our teachers have courses that they interact with for professional development. And within those courses, we offer digital badges. And so we have a science of reading pathway for digital badges, and the teachers interact throughout the day. They do the learning through the modules, they interact with each other, do some reflecting, and then complete an activity. And when they submit that activity, they are given a digital badge. And so there are multiple digital badges that they're earning this year that will then result in a credential for the science of reading.
Excellent, excellent. I think it's a very innovative way to encourage that continuous learning in a classroom for the teacher and for the teams of teachers. That's outstanding. Following the literacy standards through 6th grade, what are the main differences between the curriculum for early reading and our intermediate programs? Emily, could you talk a little bit about the differences?
Yeah, so starting with our instructional minutes, we put more instructional minutes in our earlier grades because there is more time spent on foundational skills and learning. We understand the importance of learning how to read. It's critical for our students to have that skill moving on, and so we dedicate more time to that. You will see, like I mentioned before, phonological awareness, working on sounds, playing with words, poetry. You'll see children working on phonics, playing with letters, words, building words, learning how those letters go together to make the words they see on a page. And then you will see time for students then to practice that in reading. We also utilize a writing workshop where our students are writing books, making books, and looking at different genres to write. And then as we move into our upper grades, our instructional minutes go down because so much of that reading practice happens in science and social studies, and so time grows in those areas for our upper grades. And the time is spent on, we still have foundational skills, right? There's still grammar to be learned, word parts, but there is more time to learn from the text, to dig into the stories, to talk about author's purpose and characters, and to really grow those understandings.
And you said something earlier about the early grades are about learning to read, and the upper grades are about learning, reading to learn. I almost mixed that up. But learning to read is so important in those early grades. But then once we've learned to read, we actually start to use reading as a tool for us to learn more and more. And I really like that whenever you said that earlier today. It's a great way to look at the change that happens between a 3rd grade, for example, and a 4th grade, 5th grade, 6th grade classroom. Let's talk a little bit about math. How are Lakota students learning foundational math skills? And the second part of my question is, how is math today different than what maybe our parents might remember math as being? Because it is very different than whenever I was learning math and even my children were learning math.
Yeah. So I actually would love to start with your second question, that being how has math changed? And the really wonderful part of what we've changed in math is that there's really now a focus on children, students understanding what they're doing in math versus just memorizing steps. And if you think back to your day, right, that's what it was. The teacher was walking us through step by step, telling us what to do. And if you were lucky enough to be able to memorize those steps, you knew how to get to the answer. And that's another big shift, right? There's less of a focus just on the answer. There is much more of a focus on the process of how you get to the answer and making sure that all of our students understand the math that they're doing. So then when they can't remember the step, they're able to work their way out of that problem. Then the first question, can you repeat that first question for me?
The first question was, what are we doing to teach math today in Lakota classrooms?
Oh, thank you. All right, so, so that we can really help children understand, there is a really great progression, kindergarten through 6th grade, that really works on building understanding, but continuing to move to those most sophisticated and efficient strategies and getting the right answer, right? And so in kindergarten, there is a big focus on counting and understanding number sense, being able to start at any number, forward, backwards, right? And really building that so that when they get to first and second grade, they can use that knowledge in problem solving and building fluency with addition and subtraction. We do a lot of work with story problems, all different types. And so we're really trying to put real world context for our students so that they see the necessity for math and they see the importance of it and how they'll use it every day. We ask students, we really try to build on what they know in math. I think that's also a change. I think our teachers in the past, there was more of the belief of this is what I'm going to teach you. And now we're having students come in and we want to know, what do you already know and how can I build upon that? And so really believing that they're coming with a lot of math understanding and we can support and grow them from where they are in that understanding. So we do a lot of problem-based math where we're presenting problems. We're asking students to figure out how to solve those. And then the way we share helps build understanding and takes us to our explicit instruction, that direct instruction of what we're going to teach a student to continue to help them get to those most sophisticated and efficient strategies.
Thank you. Science and social studies are still required by the State Department, and we teach those subject areas. Can we talk a little bit about how that fits into the students' schedule, their day? How do we actually make sure that our students have science and social studies as well as the language arts and the math program that we've been talking about?
Yeah. So science and social studies, thinking about our younger learners, we do have less instructional minutes around that because of our larger literacy block. And so we typically in those grades will switch back and forth between science and social studies. And what that allows our teachers to do is to really dig into a topic and let children be in that topic longer and dig deeper into it versus trying to be teaching both at the same time. So, and then in our upper grades, they do, as our minutes shift, we're able to do science and social studies every day. Both topics, both subjects are taught in an inquiry model. The state of Ohio really wrote their standards with inquiry in mind, meaning that our students are asking questions, are presented with problems and questions, and they are researching those, coming up with answers, and then really formulating opinions and facts that they share out with the public, with their peers. And then embedded throughout that time, the teacher is also doing direct instruction and helping students with their research as they're coming to those answers.
Okay. And thinking about what's in our elementary, our early primary curriculums, a lot of times materials that our students are reading or that the teacher's reading to our students, that tends to also include science and social studies. So they get the science and social studies units that their teachers teach, but also in additional reading times where I may be doing a whole group reading time, or I may be reading a book after the read aloud. Whenever I'm doing a read aloud time, I may be reading a book that's related to science and social studies in some way. So there really is that opportunity to integrate, and it's a little easier sometimes at the early primary grades because of the type of books that are available to do that. So
yeah, I would say our teachers do an excellent job of integrating that into their reading time, and then also integrating literacy skills into their science and social studies time as well.
Yeah, and that's exactly what you want to have happen. Every teacher is a teacher of reading and writing. It doesn't make any difference what your subject is. We still have to make sure our students understand reading in our subject area and writing in our subject area. So that's really great that our teachers are doing that very comfortably. The elementary curriculum also includes some co-curricular subjects, or specials as we call them here. Can you share some context for why these areas are important and how Lakota students participate? Lori, I think you might be able to respond to that.
I think I can. So our students in K through 6 currently participate in what we call specials, as you've said, and those are really our encore or co-curricular classes, whatever you want to call them. And currently we have 6 of those in our K-6 buildings. So we have art, music, physical education, social emotional learning, STEAM or Wonder Lab, depending on if you're K2 or 3-6, and then technology. So what we find is that number one, those classes are sometimes the most important thing to a student, the most exciting thing that they're coming to school to be a part of. But the other part of it is that it allows them to express creativity, to find their voice, and also encourages a different side of the brain to be triggered so that they can actually, engage more in their education as a whole child. Rather than just in those core content areas. So it does bring out a lot more of the students' personality, creativity, choice, all those different things. And I actually know that you're a musician, so I would ask if you agree with that.
I definitely agree with that. I think that the arts also enhance our content areas. When you think about music and math, they go hand in hand, along with the whole right side of the brain where the creativity and that all is housed. But when you think about art, spatial design, whenever you think about shadowing and how color enhances things, all of those pieces and parts of the specials curriculum really support the content areas that have been around for a long time, in the state of Ohio. Even when we take a look at our STEAM Wonder Lab situation, that science, that engineering, the art, the math, the technology, all combined together really integrates it and makes it so powerful for the student. They have to think in a different way in those subject areas, and that's what really helps the whole child develop. So I absolutely am a supporter of all those things.
I knew you would be.
Yes, I am. Moving on with what big changes, if any, might parents expect to see in the elementary curriculum over the next year or so?
Absolutely. We do actually have a lot of big changes coming for a lot of different reasons. We have been, as we always do, looking at our test scores and looking at how we can improve as a district. And I know our progress score is one of those areas that we were looking to improve this year. And what we've really found as we dug into that data is that providing a consistent, rigorous Tier 1 curriculum is one of the most important things that we can do. So in that vein, we are looking at 2 big adoptions this year for our English language arts K through 12 and our mathematics K through 12. And those 2 things, along with an instructional framework that we're adding into our practice every day. So parents can expect that we will be choosing by the end of the year the resources that we'll be adopting, and then training and facilitating the rollout and implementation of those materials next year. And we're hoping to see that not only does it provide some consistency for teachers and for students, but it also provides that jump of rigor that will help to identify that improvement year to year from student to student. So another one of the things that I mentioned was the instructional framework, and I'm pointing at Krista because her team has been really working hard to incorporate that, and I want to pass it over to Krista and see if she can tell us more about that.
Sure. So in December, our team kicked off a monthly professional development series that really focuses on the instructional strategies and practices our teachers are using in the classroom. So with the science of reading, there's a big focus on explicit instruction, and so that's what we're really trying to help our teachers strengthen and hone in on and do some refinement on in their classrooms. We began with the gradual release model, which is Anita Archer, and if parents hear the students using I do, we do, you do, the I do is the explicit instruction. It's that direct instruction, the teacher with the students, and then the we do is the teacher helping the students to practice what they've just learned, whether it be a skill or a concept, giving them time to practice with some monitoring and guidance. And once the 75% of the class has showing that they have that concept or skill, we move into the you do, which allows the student time for some independent practice outside of the teacher support. And what the teachers can do during that time then is pull for more targeted support with students who may still need that. So it's a great model. We are also focused on the Marzano instructional framework. So we're going to be pulling from those 43 elements there. And basically what that does is it's strategies that we can use in the classroom. It talks about clear learning targets. It helps teachers understand how to chunk content so that they're giving students enough that they can then take time to process so that it stays in their working memory. And then also going into engagement strategies, how students record and represent learning. So just a really strong focus in helping our teachers as they're designing instruction to think about the ways that they can take the things that they've learned from science of reading, but also incorporate that into the design of their lesson plan.
Great. I want to talk a little bit more about the gradual release model. You talked a little bit about an I do and then a we do. Can you talk to me a little bit about what that I do means? What does I do mean? Do I do it?
Very good question. So the I do is the teacher is the center of the learning and the students are paying attention. They're actively listening to the teacher. So I think there are times where we want the students to be engaged. So we start them off with something that they're getting into right away and we forget the importance of that explicit instruction. So as a teacher, I am directly teaching and modeling. I am in the front of the classroom and students, as I said, are actively listening and engaged. This is not a 45-minute I do. This is probably 10, 15 minutes of the teacher laying the foundation, the groundwork, explicitly sharing what the skill or concept is in the chunk that's manageable. And then the we do is where the students begin to process that information.
So they actually practice what the teacher just demonstrated or just taught?
Yes. Yes. So the we do is taking that instruction that just happened and practicing it. And so when we say I do, we do, you do, they don't have to happen in that order. The you do does not happen until we're certain that the majority of the class has the understanding, and we've seen that through the guided practice. So it could be I do, we do, I do again, we do, and then it moves into the you do. And we always recommend to our teachers the you do should not be something that was taught that day. It should be something that the students already have the knowledge of.
And the practice of errors, whenever I teach something today, and then I expect you to actually move forward and practice it by yourself, the opportunity for me to make mistakes is so broad.
Yes.
And without that, making sure that I understood, making sure that there are no misconceptions, it's really, really important in the learning process because we know that it takes about 200 times to go into your long-term memory, and then it takes about, that many times to pull it back out. So if we make a mistake, it's going to take us about 200 practices for it to come back out and be relearned in a different way. And actually it's about 8 times to go into your long-term memory. So I'm going to ask you to repeat everything 8 times as we finish up. But seriously, thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate the expertise that you bring to the district and that you've shared today with us because a strong curriculum team, a strong professional development program and team is extremely important if we want to make sure that our teachers and our students are able to do their very best every single day in the classroom. I hope everyone now has a better understanding of how and why we're making changes in order to best support our students so that we can meet their academic potential. For more information, please visit the K-6 curriculum page on our website, lakotaonline.com, or contact your building administrator. Thank you for your support of the Lakota Local Schools.